Yo, what is going on, guys? So I'm on my way to the gym right now. Today is going to be my pull A session, so I'm going to take you through that full session. Man, I really need to get one of those things that you just set your phone up on, and I don't have to hold it with my hand, because this is this is dangerous multitasking right now. But anyways, yeah, on my way to the gym, about to be there here in a second. So I'm just going to get in there, get after it, and I'm going to take you guys through that full session.
All right, guys, so let's get right into it. I did order a connector for my mic to connect to my new iPhone, so I should be able to record some videos actually talking in the gym rather than doing these voiceovers here probably within the next week or two. So that'll be nice. Switch it up a little bit. So for my back day, this is the first movement in both of my back sessions. I have a pull A, I have a pull B, and I always start off with this unilateral pull down right here. So I want to touch on a couple things here. So I'm going to pause this so I can talk and reiterate a couple things that I was discussing in my previous video. So one is going to be the elbow positioning, keeping that in front of the torso or parallel with the torso and trying to dig it into the hip. So as you can see here, I'm doing both of those things. And another couple things that are very important are keeping your chest or your sternum up during the entirety of the movement. The third thing is going to be the angle of your forearm in relation to your elbow and in relation to your bicep. These things are mistakes that I see all the time in back training because people are overly concerned with moving load. And then on the flip side of that, I also see people who are over concerned with the things that I just talked about, moving zero load. Okay, so there has to be a balance between these things if you want to actually train your lats and develop a really good overall back. So wanted to pause the video so I could touch on that. And then the other thing I wanted to touch on was fluidity, which I mentioned in the last video. Struggle reps for back, in my opinion, are a no-no. You can see that rep right there. That's my last one. I would never do another rep after that because that already right there, that was too slow for me. That is like a rep that I'm finishing because I just want to get, the most out of the set. And I could go beyond that point. I could continue to just move that load like that, but then I'm going to really start using my arms. I'm going to really start using my shoulders. I'm going to really start using my upper back. I'm no longer going to be training what I'm trying to target specifically. And I think this is a part of back training that isn't often talked about, the fluidity of the movement. I mentioned this in the last video again. Look at all the people with the best backs. They never have struggle reps consistently. Maybe they have one struggle rep or something like that, but for the most part, like really look at all the best backs in history. Almost none of them even do a struggle rep. Like they almost always shut it down before that. Look at Flex Wheeler. Well, Flex Wheeler is not the greatest example of training. That's just a genetic freak. But just still look at him train back. Look at Chris Cormier train back. Look at Ronnie Coleman train back. Look at Dorian Yates train back. Look at Phil Heath train back. All these guys with exceptional backs. Look at Derek Lunsford, okay, like a guy in today's era, train back, who he's touted as currently having the best back, and one of the best backs of all time. Look at his back training. There are no struggle reps. Everything is fluid. Every single rep. Okay, so I want to, the combination of those four things. Okay, the angle of your forearm in relation to your bicep humerus, where your elbow is pulling, the fluidity of movement, and being able to keep your chest up. Okay. All four of those things, incredibly important within back training to actually train your back. Okay. And to do all those things, you can't go too light, but you also can't go too heavy. You need to use moderate weight. And there's also nothing wrong with using the same weight for multiple weeks in a row. I'm all about progressive overload, okay? But there are many different forms of progressive overload. It isn't only weight on the bar, okay? So I wanted to touch on a couple of those points. Next exercise in, so I did 3 sets of that unilateral pull down. 2 sets in the 8 to 12 rep range, and then 1 set in the 12 to 15 rep range. Then I came over to T-bar rows. So on this day, my positioning was actually off on these, and I couldn't pinpoint it when I was doing the exercise. I was able to pinpoint it after when I rewatched my sets back, and I'm just too far up. So my elbows aren't really pulling in the line that I want. I'm not able to brace as good as I usually am either, because my chest is just hanging over a little too far. It's literally a matter of like inch and a half. But I could tell when I was pulling, I was like, because I actually lost a rep on every single set. However, on my unilateral pull downs, I gained reps every single set across the board, and I was like, that's weird. Maybe I'm just a little bit fatigued from the unilateral pull down. However, throughout the rest of the exercise, I also PR'd every single other movement. So that told me, man, something was off about the T-bars. And when I rewatched it, I was able to pinpoint, I'm like, oh, that's what I'm doing wrong. So that makes sense. So that's another example of why you should really be videotaping your training, whether or not you plan on posting it. If you want to improve your physique and maximize your results, these are things that you won't be able to catch in the moment, no matter how experienced of a lifter you are. So being able to analyze them on tape, it provides a huge benefit. So yeah, lost reps across the board on the T-bar. However, I still gave like full effort on every single set. So they're not throwaway sets. Okay. Those are still super productive sets. Those still built muscle right there. That was 3 sets. So 2 in the 8 to 12 rep range and 1 in the 12 to 15. Then I moved on to a unilateral row. So again, I might pause this here actually. Let's see. Okay, so the same thing applies to this row that applied for the unilateral pull down. Look at my forearm in relation to my elbow, in relation to bicep, in relation to shoulder. Okay, it's basically at a perfect 90-degree angle here. Again, the mistakes that I see are the angle of that forearm and that bicep. The closer that gets, the less you are working your back. And it's very easy to get carried away with this. You'll often see it with guys who are arm dominant. Okay. They might have huge biceps, huge triceps. They almost always have a lagging chest and a lagging back, because when they do chest, they compensate essentially, maybe without knowing it, and they use their triceps to press. So their triceps are massive, and then their chest is not getting the stimulus that it needs to, despite maybe being able to move a lot of load. Same thing with back training. I think I see that way more than I see with like big triceps and smaller chest, is guys will have really big arms and super underdeveloped backs because they are pulling with their biceps in all their back movements. So their back is almost getting like no stimulus. It's getting very, very low stimulus. So again, I want to point out these things here, all 4 things that I talked about earlier. And again, my elbow here is not going past my torso. It's stopping right at my torso. You can also see here, no excessive lateral flexion, right? You get guys that are like, they're sitting like this, and then it's like they're they're leaning over, like way over, trying to like engage their lat. That's not how it works. Okay. A tiny bit of lateral flexion is all you need. And you can see here I am angled with a little bit of lateral flexion, but it's like the minimal amount that I need. Okay. And then again, start this up. Fluidity of the movement. Like, look how fluid this looks. Okay. If you were to gauge this like training legs, like if I saw someone moving like, I don't know, a hack squat at this speed, right? I would be like, man, you better throw like another plate on at least, because these are just moving way too easy, with the exception of that rep, obviously, right there, and this rep here. And this is where I cut the set. And I think back training is really unique in this aspect, the fluidity aspect. I can't stress enough that I do not think grinder reps are productive for growing a back. And I also don't think extremely heavy weight, if you can do extremely heavy weight with fluid form, yes, obviously, okay. But if you're doing extremely heavy weight in the form and the movement doesn't have that fluidity to it, can that drop the weight, make it look fluid, kind of like art in motion, if you want to call it that, okay. But you can see on my left side here, same thing, right? And then I cut the set right there. Again, could I have gotten a lot more reps after that? Yes, absolutely. I could have just kept ripping those reps off, but they're not going to be productive. It's just not a good use of my energy or my time. It's essentially wasted effort, in my opinion. So moving on from there, that was also 3 sets in the 12 to 15 rep range. So as you can see, I started off with lats, went to upper back, went to lats, and now I'm moving back to upper back / teres. So this is another movement. Again, I think fluidity plays a part in this. This is a movement where I think a little bit of body English can go a long way. Kind of getting that stretch at the top. You'll see me sit in it here at the end of my sets as well. This is something that I do commonly on like a lat pull down to just really stretch out the lats and just the entire back. A little bit of Dante Trudell's principle of like the loaded stretch, right? Not to the same degree that he programs it in DC training, but you get the idea, right? Again, with this, you can see the fluidity of the movement, and you're going to see once it stops getting fluid, especially on the last rep, you'll see that's where I can the set. And this is where I'll commonly see people, especially on this exercise, because man, it's so easy to arm this exercise down and let your shoulders cave forward, let your chest cave forward, and just arm that thing down. And I see that so much. I think at this gym, I probably do the least amount of weight on that lat pull down. Like everybody that I see go and use that thing, like demolishes me in weight. So it's not all about the weight. It's a large part of how you move the weight. So that wrapped up my back training there. That was 3 sets in the 12 to 20 rep range, I believe, or maybe 8 to 12. I don't know. It's somewhere in there, okay? Rep range isn't that important. It's just the effort that is important. Then ended the workout with biceps. So I usually do the unilateral. I was in a little bit of a rush today, so I did the bilateral preacher. I'm going to be honest, this one's pretty terrible. The design on it is just so poor. As you can see, I'm not even sitting in the seat because I'd probably just tear my biceps off the bone if I was sitting in my seat. The way that it has you, if you were to actually sit down, is like it's so compromised because that weight is so heavy in the stretch. And man, that is dangerous for biceps. Okay. There's some movements where I don't think it's as dangerous, but man, you want to tear a bicep right off the bone. That's a good way to do it. So you can see that's why I was standing on that one to kind of change the angle. Overall, not really a fan of that movement, but it got the job done for the day. And it still gave me stimulus. It still gave me what I was looking for. It's just not what I would choose to do on a regular basis. So hopefully you guys were able to take away something from this video, something that you can bring to your own workouts and improve your back training, grow a bigger back. If you found anything interesting, drop it in the comments, or if you have any questions, further questions, drop those in the comments too. I always check that and I'll respond to them. So I'm going to wrap this video up here. I appreciate you guys hanging out. I always appreciate the support, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.